Despite the misguided efforts of kids on Twitter, Natlan has arrived and has brought with it another region-specific mechanic for its characters. Unlike the mostly useless Arkham mechanics in Fontaine, however, Nightsoul is an integral part of the new characters and their gear, and with sub-mechanics like Nightsoul Burst that aren't what you'd think they are, you might be intimidated to pull for characters you like. Or maybe you haven't played since Leo and heard about all the new quality of life, new endgame, and ability to skip Inazuma through Fontaine. Either way, you're probably asking yourself, what the is Nightsoul? At the moment, we only have 3 characters with Nightsoul mechanics. Kachina, Moalani, and since I got sick and couldn't get the video out on time, Kanik. One of which is free and is actually a solid investment because, at the moment, she's the only character that's designed to use this busted artifact set we'll talk about in a bit. Right now, all of these characters enter Nightsoul's Blessing when using their elemental skill. However, there may be characters that enter it with their burst or other means further down the road. When Nightsoul's Blessing is active, a meter will appear next to the character when they're on field, and for characters that can be in Nightsoul's Blessing while off field, it will appear under their character Archon while they are. So what exactly does it do? Nothing. On its own. It's basically a switch that when activated allows other abilities and mechanics to take effect. You can think of it like Raiden's Burst. When it isn't active, she uses a polearm attack, but when it is active, it allows her to attack with the Muso no Hitotachi. It's pretty simple if-then logic that's all over every game you've ever played. Nightsoul Burst is similar, and no, it has nothing to do with Elemental Burst. When you have a Natlan character in your party and deal elemental damage, it triggers this big transparent explosion. That's Nightsoul Burst. And once again, it doesn't do anything. However, certain abilities and effects can keep track of whether it has or how many times it has happened, and trigger effects based on that. If you only have one Natlan character in your party, it can occur once every 18 seconds. If you have 2, it can occur once every 12 seconds, and with 3 or more Natlan characters in your party, it can occur once every 9 seconds. I've dealt with some misunderstandings recently about how cooldown abilities work, so let me clarify. This does not mean it occurs 18, 12, and 9 seconds. That's simply the cooldown for when it can be triggered again. So if you trigger Nightsoul Burst, after 18 seconds, the next time you deal elemental damage, it will be triggered again. So it is always some amount greater than the cooldown. Just like with Nahida's skill that has a cooldown of 2.5 seconds, but isn't triggered until the next reaction or seed explosion after that cooldown. Wait! Before we get into the rest of the video, I recently asked my audience what they think of my Ghost Boy, and a concerning number of people answered that they didn't know I was using a model now. On top of all that, I only got 1.3 thousand impressions on my I Broke free-to-play video. That means, despite the fact it still has an 8% click-through rate and more than 10% of the people that watched it liked it, YouTube didn't even show it to all of my subscribers. So, if you're subbed or plan to, make sure you hit that bell and turn on all notifications because it's pretty likely YouTube just hasn't been showing you my videos lately. So now that we have that bit of knowledge, let's look at the abilities and effects that require them to occur. First, the artifacts. Obsidian Codex is pretty straightforward. When a Natlan character is in Nightsoul's Blessing, meaning when they have the Nightsoul meter, they gain 15% damage bonus to all their attacks. When a character consumes Nightsoul, when the Nightsoul meter goes down for any reason, the character gains 40% crit rate. So far, every Natlan character's kit, including Kachina's, but there's no world where it's ever worth giving her this set, is designed to be able to fully take advantage of this. We'll go into how characters do it in a bit, but know you'll have the set bonus on the characters just by playing them the way they're designed to be played. Scroll the Hero is an entirely different story though. First, when the Nightsoul Burst is triggered, the transparent explosion thing, the equipping character regenerates 6 energy. You can think of this as lowering the energy for their burst by 6 after the first rotation, since you'll normally trigger Nightsoul Burst while their energy is capped in the first rotation. Second, when the character with the artifact set triggers a reaction, you gain 12% damage bonus for all elements involved in a reaction for 15 seconds. That isn't just Natlan characters. Every character in the game is capable of doing this, and it's possible to do it with all 4 elements your team can be composed of. It's going to be very interesting to see the kind of setups people are able to use to exploit this. However, it doesn't stop there. Natlan characters can gain your team an additional 28% damage bonus for 20 seconds for all elements involved in the reaction if they are in Nightsoul's blessing when it happens. Unfortunately, additional reactions do not refresh the duration of the already active elemental bonuses, but they can add other elements after the ones gained with the initial reaction. So if you were to crystallize Hydro initially and then crystallize Pyro later, you would be able to have Hydro, Pyro, and Geo damage percent bonuses. Unfortunately, since the two sets of buffs are on different timers, it's going to be kind of impractical to maintain close to 100% uptime on both. But, like I said earlier, because of that, the setups that are going to be theory crafted for this set are going to be very interesting. Now, let's talk about the characters currently available and what Nightsoul/Nightsoul Burst means for them. For Mualani, when she's in Nightsoul's blessing, she rides her shark. Speaking of, how dare she call it a surfboard? That is a living creature, you monster. Kachina's is an actual machine, and even she had the decency to give it a name. Anyway, when she's riding her shark, she changes from throwing fish to biting with the shark, and the damage is changed from attack scaling to HP scaling. She can also ride across water and lava and interact with certain Natlan puzzles while she's on her shark slave. She also has a passive that generates a stack every time Nightsoul Burst occurs, up to 3 stacks, that increases her burst damage. If she's the only Natlan character, since you can only get Nightsoul Burst once every 18 plus seconds, you can count on having 1 stack every 20-second rotation. If you throw in Kachina, the cooldown is changed to 12 plus seconds, so you'll alternate between having 1 and 2 stacks in a 20-second rotation. Kachina's Nightsoul Blessing summons her Turbo Whirly, which she can either ride on, climb walls with, interact with certain puzzles, and bounce on like a pogo stick, or leave on standby to periodically smash the ground while you on-field other characters. When a Nightsoul Burst occurs, she gets a 20% Geo damage bonus for 12 seconds, and since I don't have 3 Natlan characters, the most Nightsoul Bursts I can trigger is once every 12 plus seconds, meaning even if it could stack, it's impossible for me to verify in-game one way or the other. However, Kachina's damage is total trash, so it's not a big deal. Even if it could stack, you'd have less than 3 seconds of uptime on both stacks. Kanichi enters Nightsoul Blessing whenever he uses his elemental skill, and it lasts for 10 seconds. 11.7 seconds with his burst, but that's basically just so the animation doesn't cut into its uptime. When in Nightsoul, he marks an enemy with a grappling hook and is able to swing around them. By hitting the attack button, he'll fire his finger guns to generate Nightsoul. He'll generate additional Nightsoul by swinging into the enemy's blind spot. He will generate even more Nightsoul if the enemy is affected by burning. Once he's generated 20 Nightsoul, he'll be able to hit the skill button to launch a giant Dendro Cannon for big PP damage. He can also do short grapples through the air while in Nightsoul and swing around on these Natlan orbs, which is pretty cool until you realize literally every character can do this in Sumeru, and Sumeru's Spider-Man sigils are freaking everywhere. When Nightsoul Burst is triggered, he will gain a stack on his Ascension 4 passive. He can have 2 stacks that are consumed when he fires his laser. Each stack increases the damage of his laser by 320% of his attack. Just like Mualani, you really shouldn't count on having both stacks. One final thing to know about Nightsoul is Phlogiston. Phlogiston is the orange meter above your health bar while in Natlan. It essentially works as a backup reserve of Nightsoul to extend the time your characters can stay in Nightsoul's Blessing. However, I wouldn't use it to extend field time in combat because it can cause you to get used to rotations that are impossible outside of Natlan, which, in turn, can cause you to perceive characters as being far weaker than they actually are in other scenarios. Phlogiston is really cool for exploration though, because you can constantly refresh it to stay in Nightsoul's Blessing indefinitely, and it activates the exploration passives for Natlan characters. For Kachina, it allows her to be swapped into while running, dashing, and climbing with a little less Nightsoul than she gets when using her skill, but she's also able to use her skill during this to refresh it to the max amount of Nightsoul. Combined with Kirara, This can allow you to scale the tallest peaks in Natlan without giving any thought as to where you should stop to regain stamina. Mualani does the same, but for swimming and sprinting. It's technically possible to still do something like walk on water with Farina's skill and activate Mualani's skill when you swap to her outside of Natlan, but it's frame perfect, so I wouldn't recommend it. And now I'm looking forward to seeing those of you who refuse to listen try to use this to get to Inazuma. Kanish does the same as the other two, but in the air, and not gonna lie, that's freaking cool. These exploration tricks are all pretty cool, but they really just make me wish I could always swap while climbing, swimming, and gliding. Now that I know they can implement it, I kind of feel cheated that I can't. But that's it. Literally everything you need to know about the new Nightsoul mechanic in Natlan. If you liked the video or learned something, do all the liking, subscribing, bell ringing, and commenting you can to let YouTube know my content is at least worth showing all of my subscribers. What the... Oh, and if you've got the hype feature available, do that too. That'd be cool. Bye.